Hello everyone, our today's lesson is about Pushkin by Russian Romanticism and his drama Mozart and Salieri. Then as you see here we have three contents as usual. We don't have any video lesson less than three contents, so every time we have 3 or 4 contents. And it means the first and second contents they are for your lectures and the third content for your seminar date. But of course I mix all of these contents. I give you all the information about these 3 contents. Then in seminar I ask you about this information. So the first content is Russian Romanticism. So Alexander Pushkin, Mozart and Salieri. And the second one is Analysis of Little Tragedy, Mozart and Solieri by Pushkin. And the major themes, enviousness, egoism, etc. in Mozart and Solieri. It's really interesting drama and so short. But although it's so short, the meaning is really deep. And I highly recommend it for you to read. Let's look at the review of Russian Romanticism. The decades between 1820 and 1840 witnessed simultaneously the zenith of Russian Romanticism and the first stage of Russian literature's greatest period, which extended from approximately 1820 to the time of the First World War. And in terms of genres, Russian Romanticism began with a strong emphasis on poetry. It's appropriate that Ruslan and Ludmila of 1820 should be a narrative poem, but in the course of its development shifted toward prose. Thus, Pushkin, though he never abandoned poetry by any means, turned definitely toward prose in 1830 with the composition of his Tales of Belkin, a cycle of works which laid the foundations of the Russian short story yet to come. And Gogol began his literary career with a poetic failure, but soon found his place as a writer of elaborate prose, and Lermontov, in numerous ways the most characteristic figure of the Romantic period, remained not only a fine poet. Many think him second only to Pushkin among 19th century poets, but became an excellent prose writer as well, and it's proper that his novel or cycle of short stories, A Hero of Our Time, which is written in 1840, should mark the end of Russian Romanticism. So this period just lasted 20 years, and rather decisively at that. The transition from Ruslan and Ludmila to A Hero of Our Time marks not only a shift from an early Romanticism based upon national folklore to a Romanticism oriented toward the extraordinary individual. The superfluous man is a social context, but also a shift from poetry to prose, and yet both works are plainly romantic in their thrust. So we are talking about Pushkin, almost you know him. He was a Russian poet, playwright, and novelist of a Romantic era, who is considered by many to be the greatest Russian poet and the founder of modern Russian literature. And so here you can see his literary activity. The first place, narrative poems. So Ruslan and Ludmila, The Prisoner of the Caucasus, The Fountain of Bahçesaray, and Yevgeny Onegin. And dramas, The Little Tragedies. It's the head of the 4 tragedies by Pushkin, and Mozart and Salieri is one part of these Little Tragedies, which is written in 1830. And now we are talking about Mozart and Salieri. It's a poetic drama by Pushkin. The play was written in 1830 as one of his 4 short plays known as The Little Tragedies, and was published in 1832, although it was written in 1830. Based on one of the numerous rumors caused by the early deaths of Mozart, it features only 3 characters. So Mozart, Antonio Salieri, and a non-speaking part in The Blind Fiddler, who's playing Mozart finds hilarious, and Salieri is appalled by it. It was the only one of Pushkin's plays that was staged during his lifetime. Mozart and Salieri was the inspiration for Peter Shaffer's Amadeus. So, Mozart and Salieri, again, we have several topics about this. Firstly, I would like to tell you the short summary of this drama. Mozart and Salieri is a story of envy that results in the murder of Mozart and the questioning of the dual capacity of genius and villainy. The short play begins with Salieri discussing his plan to murder Mozart. These themes to run throughout the entirety of the little tragedies. Each lead of the 4 plays start out knowing exactly what they are going to do. And as an audience member or a reader, we never see them think twice or vacillate on these terms. So therefore, Salieri's determination to kill Mozart thrust him into the narrative up until the final moment of the play. The result is not difficult to guess. Salieri poisons Mozart, and at the end of the play, Mozart dies and Salieri is left on stage with his dead friend and his lived goal of murdering him. So, of course, it's just a little short summary for this drama, and I just want you to be familiar with this drama while I'm talking about it. And Mozart and Salieri, probably the best known of Pushkin's little tragedies, was written in 1830 during the peak of the poet's creative powers. Like the other little tragedies, it's a closet drama which concentrates on the devastating effects of an all-consuming human passion. And in this case, envy Salieri and Mozart typifies Pushkin's implications technique of character construction. So the silent points of a fictional psyche are highlighted sufficiently to suggest inner depths while stopping short of precise concentration. This allows full play to pictorial inference on a plurality of connotational levels, thematic, psychological, and sociological. So the present work, the first of its kind in English, isolates 2 major thematic dominants in the play, envy and music. So I chose these 2 themes as a main theme of this drama, and these form the focus for its aesthetic and psychological preoccupations respectively. And Pushkin has often been regarded as an enigmatic phenomenon in the West, and the compactness and economy of his works often seeming at odds with the degree of impact which they have made on subsequent generations of Russian writers. The present work seeks to lay bare what is typical for Pushkin, the intimation of great psychological and philosophical truths via a superphysically unassuming medium. It's not surprising that, therefore, that the influence of Pushkin's Mozart and Salieri and of the aesthetic and ideological positions they represent can be felt in the works of later Russian writers, notably Dostoevsky. So this is the picture of when Salieri poisons Mozart. So he adds some poison to his into his wine, into Mozart's wine, while he was playing his Requiem. And so here we have another themes of the competing ethical topics for critical discourse. The thematics of Mozart and Salieri is complex, as you see. The work generates a sufficient number of often competing ethical topics for critical discourse, like envy, crime, murder, friendship, ambition, pride, etc., to create taxonomic difficulties. And Mozart and Salieri, two thematic areas we have: envy and music. I will show you it in the next slide. So, envy and music acquire this privileged status because they are unique ports by means of which the other thematic areas can easily be accessed. They are, moreover, of themselves and independently of the context of the play, unrelated categories. They are central to the synthesizing process which generates the play's originality, and precisely by bringing together and contextualizing ethical and cultural categories not generally linked together. By contrast, other thematic topics describable in Mozart and Salieri readily adhere by the laws of association to the two already mentioned: crime, so murder, pride, innocence, religion, even to be envious, and creativity, and art, criticism, genius, beauty, fame to music, and so on, and thus participate in the analytical process by which the work articulates rather than generates meaning. So, the critical importance of the theme of envy has already been touched upon, so I said about it before. There are indeed a number of arguments in favor of its being regarded as the master theme of Mozart and Salieri. In the first place, Salieri's first scene setting, soliloquy, culminates with "I am now envious. I envy deeply." So, which I will show you in the upcoming slides. I will show you this quote. In formal terms, may seem to be an announcement of theme, so it's perhaps more accurately the enunciation of subject. So secondly, there is Pushkin's well-known defense of his characterization of Salieri against criticism that it was calumnious. The envious person who could whistle at Don Juan could have poisoned its creator. And thirdly, Pushkin called an early draft of the play envy. So that's why envy is the main major theme of this drama. And egoism and being a glory hound is also concerning to the first topic, to envy. And this other thing I would like to say is a striking feature of Salieri's envy is the suddenness of its onset. It's an attack, and its sudden onset is acknowledged by the sufferer himself. But now I say it myself, I am now envious. So Salieri's discovery or introduction of himself as an envier is, of course, rhetorically compelling. It's also a time-specific self-identification. He has not always been an envier. It's something that has happened to him after Mozart's fame. And Salieri has had indeed a life before envy. This better life was perhaps presided over by a Pushkinian emulation, which had allowed Salieri to accept the musical triumphs of Gluck and Piccini. And the other main theme is music. Is amenable to analysis into a number of componential sub-themes. Salieri brings with him creative biography, musical apprenticeship, and pupillage. His monologues also offer, within their limited discursive area, musico-historical perspectives, which proves crucial to the constitution of an aesthetic thematic. It's important that the reader grasp that the historical is here present symbolically rather than chronologically, that simultaneously with its effect of locating and contextualizing the action, historical fact is here subjectized into a figurative form that will furnish transtemporal conclusions about the laws of creativity. Yet, paradoxically, it's precisely the historical specificity of Mozart and Salieri which enables it to broach such musical sub-themes as the canonization process, the clash between archaism and innovation, and the claims for and against non-thematically grounded aesthetics. And the presentation of aesthetic issues in Mozart and Salieri is fundamentally polemical. The very juxtaposition of Salieri and Mozart in the play, each bringing with him a complex of competing creative attitudes, effectively dialectizing the presentation of the musical theme. And a consequence of such logical structurization is that thematic difference in Mozart and Salieri means either complementary or opposition. The various aesthetic characteristics of Salieri, his striving for mastery, his willingness to imitate, his appreciation of Mozart's significance, and his developing antipathy towards Mozart's creative facility are discrete but complementary aspects of the single psycho-creative whole, which is Salieri. So, on the other hand, the set of creative sub-themes which are introduced into the play by Mozart, like being a genius and being unskillful, being talented, being gifted, such kind of thematics. So lack of autocritical inhibition and humorous appreciation are not merely additional to the sub-themes associated with Salieri, but are more importantly diametrically opposed to them. Mozart and Salieri together comprise a single universe of aesthetic discourse in which every proposition is matched by its polar counterpart. The excluded middle, in the logical sense, is here the location of a series of abstract dilemmas or paradoxes with complementary force, inspiration or industry, emotion or reason, creative freedom or adherence to rule, and so on. And it's this matrix of abstract opposition, which is the key to Mozart and Salieri's interpretational richness. For this series of binaries, each with its peculiar inner contradiction, but all broadly synonymous, goes well beyond the musical, aesthetic, or creative in its significance to touch upon a fundamental distinction in the makeup of the human psyche. And the other thing is, of course, you know that it's our favorite slide that we are talking about symbols in every novel and drama. So here we have two main symbols. The first one is a black coffin, and the second one is a man in black. And also we have another symbol like a grave. I didn't write it because a black coffin is just near to grave. So here, at the beginning of the drama, Mozart sees a black coffin. He pretends to see this. Maybe it was a hallucination or something else. And it was the prediction of Mozart's ending, Mozart's life ending. And a man in black is also, it symbolizes the devil, and that he will, or he or she will take him his soul back. And a man in black may be the symbol of Salieri's itself, the Salieri's inner soul, and such kind of predictions are coming to Mozart. Maybe in this case, Pushkin wants to. It seems that he wants to predict his end to Mozart, but Mozart couldn't understand, of course, because he relied on Salieri, and he didn't imagine and he didn't expect that Salieri can pose in Mozart. And the main characters, major characters, Mozart and Salieri, and we discussed about their characters also according to the themes of envy and music. And they are major characters. We have three characters in this drama. So the major characters are Mozart and Salieri, and the second character is a fiddler, who was sitting in the street, and he pretended to play Mozart's compositions. And when Mozart came across with this fiddler, it comes to him hilarious that the fiddler cannot play his compositions well. And the analysis of quotes. And sorry, another thing I would like to say about major characters Mozart, it's about being genius. So the other thematic elements of Mozart and Salieri and other the main feature of Mozart's character is being genius, and the reader that should not need to be informed explicitly that Mozart is a genius, Pushkin's characterization of Mozart can, in a part at least, be construed as a humorous play on his fairly unshakable preconception. This is not to say, however, that Pushkin's presentation of Mozart as an unexceptional man in areas of his life, not directly contagious to his creativity, was not equally motivated by certain cultural preconceptions prevalent in Pushkin's own time. And what's clear from the foregoing is that Mozart and Salieri problematizes genius by associating it with the major ethical issues raised in the course of the plot, but at the same time the contractive perceptions of genius which are thereby produced correspond closely to real questions about the nature of the phenomenon, which were unresolved at the time Pushkin was writing and which were evoked in large measure by the impact of Romantic aesthetics on its predecessors. And now we're going to talk about the quotes, analysis of quotes. So this is from the part that I sent you in PDF format, but this is another version of the quotes. So I will read you the both of them, because it's in Russian and then it's translated to English. Maybe they have different types of translations, and that's why I just chose the same quote in two versions. And here you see this one from the lines 54 and 60. You can pause and read it. And the second one is here, who will say that proud Salieri was ever a despicable envier, a serpent trampled on by people and tough living, and impotently gnawing sand and dust, nobody. But now I say it myself, I'm now envious. I envy deeply, I envy painfully. This is in the beginning of the drama by Salieri, and he confesses that I would never feel like that, but now I feel that I'm envious. Envy, by contrast, is a shameful passion, and because the stronger it's felt, the more strongly it suggests the inferiority or impotence of the envier. Salieri is clearly aware of this, and all his life has striven to overcome a passion which, like a virus, can quickly overwhelm the sufferer's precarious self-esteem. The irony of the soliloquy convention is that characters are made to articulate as thematic explication truths that in psychological reality they would hesitate to admit to themselves. This means that soliloquies, while fulfilling their informative function to the addressee, must paradoxically strive to reconstitute figuratively the unspokenness or represented aspects of the inner state they are representing. So this function is clearly shown in the build-up to the revelation of Salieri's envy. The true addressee here is, of course, Salieri alone. For above all, envy must be kept secret. As we have said, to envy is to admit one's inferiority to oneself, but to be thought of by others as envious is to be despised by them. To have one's inferiority objectivized and corroborated. Thus, the soliloquy, this public discourse of Salieri's, is a figurative representation of the sacred discourse of envy, with its double concealment from the addressee. To conceal one's envy from others, in so doing not to be defined as an envier. So who will say? It's asking, who will say? Finally, to be forced to define oneself as such, he says, but now I say it myself. I will not pursue here the full implication of the serpentine trope with which Salieri reinforces what may be termed the unenviable plight of the exposed envier, but would underline that one function of this image is to suggest that envy is a uniquely grave offense. It's the primal sin, the sin of a Satan, and at the same time one of the 7 deadly sins, a sin unto death. For these reasons, we would expect Salieri to find some way out of what he seems to admit is a perilous moral condition. Hence, the subsequent emergence of professionally artistic rationale for the need to eliminate Mozart. And the second quote is, again, I chose just 2 versions. It's from the lines 96 to 101. We have the first quote here. You can find it from the PDF that I sent you. And the second one is the other version of the same part. So imagine to yourself who, it's, by the way, it's by Mozart. Imagine to yourself who, well, me, say somewhat younger, I'm in love, not a lot, just a little, and with some beauty, or perhaps a friend, perhaps it's you. So friend and you can see the meaning of this quote. I'm happy, suddenly a vision of the grave, sudden darkness, or something of the sort. So here, as you see, the symbol grave and sudden darkness we have, and also we have the paradox that it says perhaps a friend and then perhaps it's you. And you see that Salieri is not the real friend for Mozart, but Mozart thinks that he is a friend for him. So here Mozart has not brought Salieri anything because he has yet to produce it. He is about to enact the creative moment, or at least the concretizing part of it, before Salieri's eyes and ears. In doing this, he will demonstrate to Salieri a level of creative competence which the latter will never be able to emulate, by practice and dedication. And so, in this sense too, Mozart has brought nothing for the copy-conscious Salieri to appropriate. Mozart's compositional process is as vague and impressionist as Salieri's is logical and precise. As with Salieri, creativity is gained at the expense of sleep. And so here you can see the lack of specificity. In particular, the source of emotion could be one of several possibilities. Some beauty, or perhaps a friend, a vision of the grave, sudden darkness, or something of the sort. Here then we have both social and expressionist elements combining in the creative act by not unequal terms. The realia are there to define the emotion, but the emotion itself is articulated on the keyboard. Well, listen. After that I will show you. And Mozart's playing, of course, in the medium of closet drama has to be imagined on the basis of our culturally inherited notion of Mozart's genius. But equally, what confirms this for us is the ecstatic reaction of Salieri. So the other quote is from the first part, and the lines 61 and 65. We have just one version. So where is rightness, where is justice, when the sacred gift, immortal genius, comes not in rewarded? And it's telling by Mozart and Salieri. Here, genius is understood in a non-humanized or impersonal sense, though the entry of Mozart immediately following these words points to the incarnated, indwelling sense of genius which prevails throughout the rest of the work. By its strategic collocation with envy, genius is early identified as a primary motivational element in Salieri's subsequent actions. However, given the characterizational intentionality of the play, it serves to mark out the creative inferiority of Salieri rather than the creative superiority of Mozart, a situation which obtains until Mozart himself connects genius to the homogeneous successor of envy and crime. Now genius becomes strongly personalized via mortality and morality, and is simultaneously delimited. There is something crime which is beyond the experience of genius. And the other quote, I think it's the last quote, yes. Salieri says he was too humorous a man for that sort of trade, and Mozart says he is a genius like you and me, and genius and villainy are two incompatible things. So they are talking about the fiddler, and clearly then there is a difference between the Mozartian and Salierian perspectives on genius. Mozart regards it as the inspirational privilege, but a shared one all the same. For Salieri, whatever the illusions he has entertained concerning his own claims to it, genius turns out to be the unique quality which he has encountered only in Mozart. So that's the end of our video lesson, and I hope you will enjoy reading the PDF play and watching this video, and try to analyze by your own approach. And as I said before, I'm open to see your own analysis in our seminars. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.